I am Stephanie, 32, a senior cybersecurity manager at FinTech Solutions, where I have spent 8 dedicated years building our security infrastructure. My performance reviews were always stellar, until Harold, our new VP, announced my replacement was an expert from Google. 4 hours after she started, federal agents escorted her out in handcuffs. The company panicked. Harold disappeared, and I walked away with triple the severance package they initially offered. Before I tell you how this corporate chess game turned into a federal investigation, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever witnessed workplace betrayal that backfired spectacularly. The journey that led me to FinTech Solutions began at Northwestern University, where I earned my degree in computer science with a specialization in cybersecurity. Technology had always fascinated me, but the challenge of protecting digital assets in an increasingly vulnerable world truly captured my interest. I was determined to make my mark in an industry dominated by men. After graduation, I worked at 2 smaller tech companies, learning the ropes and building my expertise. The first was a startup that gave me hands-on experience with real-world threats. The second was a mid-size financial software company, where I refined my skills in compliance and regulatory frameworks. Each position taught me valuable lessons, but I knew I wanted to take on greater challenges. When the opportunity at FinTech Solutions came along, I jumped at it. The company was growing rapidly, developing cutting-edge financial technology that required robust security protocols. They needed someone who could build and lead a cybersecurity team from the ground up. I was only 24, but I convinced them I was ready for the responsibility. Over the next 8 years, I built a reputation as a dedicated and effective security professional. My team grew to 6 talented analysts, each bringing unique skills to our collective mission of protecting sensitive financial data. We prevented numerous potential breaches, implemented state-of-the-art security protocols, and kept the company compliant with increasingly complex regulations. Our office culture was collaborative and supportive, at least until about 18 months ago. I had positive relationships with most of my colleagues. Jessica, our marketing director, became my closest friend at work. We often grabbed lunch together and served as sounding boards for each other when facing workplace challenges. Daniel, my senior security analyst, was my right-hand person, brilliant with coding, and always willing to put in extra hours when we faced critical situations. Ethan, our CEO, genuinely valued the work my team did. He understood that in the financial technology sector, security breaches could destroy customer trust overnight. Whenever we successfully thwarted an attack or implemented new protective measures, he made a point of acknowledging our efforts during company meetings. Everything changed when Harold joined as the VP of Technology 18 months ago. He came from a larger competitor with an impressive resume and immediately began making waves. At first, I tried to be open-minded. New leadership often brings fresh perspectives, and I was willing to adapt. But troubling patterns emerged quickly. Harold had a habit of presenting my team initiatives as his own ideas in executive meetings. He questioned my decisions publicly, creating an atmosphere of doubt around my leadership. Perhaps most concerning, he began bringing in outside consultants without proper security clearances or background checks, which violated our own protocols. Despite these challenges, I remained optimistic. I developed strategies to win Harold over, documenting every security win meticulously and finding opportunities to support his other initiatives. I believed that demonstrating my value consistently would eventually earn his respect. Just 3 months ago, my team successfully prevented what could have been a catastrophic breach. We detected unusual patterns in our network traffic that turned out to be an advanced, persistent threat targeting our proprietary trading algorithms. Working around the clock for 72 hours, we isolated the threat, strengthened our defenses, and developed new monitoring protocols to prevent similar attacks. The board was impressed, and Ethan personally congratulated me. This victory should have secured my position, especially with the company preparing for a potential acquisition that would require proving the robustness of our security infrastructure to potential buyers. Instead, it seemed to trigger Harold resentment even more. The acquisition talks put everyone under increased pressure. Executives were focused on making the company as attractive as possible to potential buyers, and every department was expected to demonstrate exceptional performance. For the security team, this meant ensuring our systems were impenetrable while simultaneously adapting to new strategic initiatives. I remained confident in my position. 8 years of stellar performance, a team that respected me, and a recent major security win should have made me indispensable. I was wrong. The first red flag appeared when I noticed my name missing from the invitation to the quarterly security planning meeting. This was a session I had not only attended but typically led for the past several years. When I mentioned the oversight to Harold, he brushed it off as an administrative error but did not add me to the meeting. Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed a disturbing pattern. Calendar invites for strategic planning sessions were being rescinded with vague explanations about streamlining attendance or focusing the discussion. Projects that would normally require my input were moving forward, without my knowledge only coming to my attention when my team members were pulled into implementation discussions. Harold began holding closed-door sessions about new security initiatives. Whenever I asked about these meetings, he provided only surface-level information, claiming they were preliminary discussions not worth my time. Yet I could see meeting notes being distributed to other department heads, excluding me entirely. One Tuesday afternoon, Jessica pulled me aside after noticing my subdued demeanor in the morning staff meeting. "Something is happening," she warned over coffee in the corner cafe, away from office ears. "There are rumors about restructuring the technology departments. Harold has been meeting with human resources twice a week." That evening, I decided to directly confront Harold about being sidelined. I caught him as he was leaving and asked for a few minutes of his time. "I have noticed I am being excluded from key meetings involving my department," I said, keeping my tone professional. "If there are concerns about my performance, I would appreciate direct feedback." Harold looked momentarily uncomfortable before regaining his composed expression. "Stephanie, you are overthinking this. We are simply making some organizational adjustments to streamline decision-making. Your role is still valued." His reassurance felt hollow, especially when the next morning I was accidentally copied on an email thread between Harold and Megan from Human Resources discussing a transition plan for the cybersecurity department. The email was quickly recalled, but not before I had seen enough to confirm my suspicions. I attempted to discuss my concerns with Ethan, but the CEO was distracted by the acquisition talks. Our meeting was cut short when he received an urgent call from potential investors. "I trust Harold to manage his departments effectively," he told me before rushing off. "If there are serious issues, put them in writing and I will review them when things settle down." The office climate shifted subtly but noticeably. People who normally stopped by my desk for casual conversations suddenly found reasons to communicate by email instead. In meetings, I noticed colleagues making less eye contact as if association with me had become uncomfortable. During my quarterly review, which Harold now conducted instead of Ethan, I received cryptic feedback about the department needing fresh perspectives and innovative approaches to emerging threats. When I asked for specific examples of where my leadership was lacking, Harold offered only vague generalities about keeping pace with industry evolution. My team began receiving increased scrutiny. Reports that had previously been accepted without question were now returned with demands for extensive revisions. Arbitrary deadlines were set for projects without consideration for their complexity or existing workloads. The situation was taking a personal toll. I began experiencing insomnia, spending nights staring at the ceiling and reviewing every recent interaction for clues about what was happening. Despite my anxiety, I maintained a professional demeanor at work, determined not to give Harold any ammunition to use against me. One evening, working late to complete yet another unnecessary report revision, I walked to the printer and saw Harold in the conference room reviewing my personnel file and project history. When he noticed me watching through the glass wall, he quickly closed the folder and made a show of checking his phone as if that had been his focus all along. That weekend, for the first time in 8 years, I updated my resume. The exercise felt both practical and premature. I still hoped there was a misunderstanding that could be resolved, but my instincts told me to prepare for the worst. Little did I know how quickly that worst would arrive, or that it would ultimately lead to an outcome I could never have anticipated. Monday morning arrived with an unexpected notification. An all-hands meeting for the cybersecurity department had been scheduled for 9:30 a.m. with Harold listed as the host. The subject line simply read, "Department announcement," with no agenda or additional information provided. My team gathered in the conference room, exchanging confused glances. Harold arrived 5 minutes late, accompanied by a woman I had never seen before. She appeared to be in her early 30s, dressed impeccably in a designer suit that seemed excessive for our normally casual office environment. "Good morning, everyone," Harold began with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "I would like to introduce you all to Natalie Winters. Natalie comes to us with exceptional credentials, as a cybersecurity expert from Google, where she led their financial systems protection team. The woman nodded confidently, as Harold continued effective immediately. Natalie will be taking over as Director of Cybersecurity. Her expertise will be invaluable as we prepare for the acquisition and elevate our security protocols to the next level. The room fell silent. 6 pairs of eyes turned toward me, waiting for my reaction. My face burned with humiliation as I realized what was happening. Not only was I being replaced, but Harold had not even given me the courtesy of a private conversation before this public announcement. Stephanie will be helping with knowledge transfer over the next 2 weeks before her departure. Harold added almost as an afterthought. I trust you will all make Natalie feel welcome and support this transition. Natalie stepped forward. I am thrilled to join the team, she said with a practiced smile. Google has very different challenges than fintech solutions, of course, but the fundamental security principles remain the same. I look forward to getting to know each of you and learning about your specific roles. Something about her response struck me as odd. The vagueness of her statement about Google, perhaps, or the way she avoided specifics about her experience. But in the shock of the moment, I could not process these subtle warning signs. The meeting ended quickly after that. Harold asked me to show Natalie to my office, which would now become hers. As we walked through the department, I felt the stares of not just my team, but other colleagues who had heard the news through the rapid office grapevine. Once we were alone in the hallway, Jessica intercepted me. Bathroom now, she whispered, pulling me away from the curious eyes. Inside the empty restroom, I finally let my composure slip. Tears of anger and betrayal flowed freely as Jessica stood guard at the door to ensure privacy. This is completely unexpected, I sobbed, trying to make sense of what had just happened. 8 years of building this department, and he replaces me without warning, with someone from Google who knows nothing about our systems. Something does not feel right about this, Jessica agreed, handing me tissues. Google experts do not typically jump to mid-sized companies like ours without a significant promotion or equity package. After composing myself, I returned to find Natalie sitting at my desk, already changing the computer settings. I will need access to all security protocols and administrative credentials, she said without looking up. Harold mentioned you would provide a comprehensive overview of your current threat monitoring systems and any ongoing investigations. For the next 2 days, I forced myself to cooperate with the transition process, despite growing suspicions about Natalie credentials. Her questions revealed alarming gaps in basic cybersecurity knowledge. She seemed unfamiliar with standard encryption protocols and asked surprisingly elementary questions about our firewall configuration. At Google, we had proprietary systems that operated differently, she explained whenever I expressed surprise at her lack of familiarity with industry-standard practices. Yet her explanations always remained vague, without the specific technical details an actual Google engineer would typically reference. Harold insisted on attending our knowledge transfer sessions, interrupting whenever I went into detail about our more sophisticated security measures. Natalie does not need that level of granularity yet, he would say, cutting me off. Let us focus on the operational basics first. My team members noticed the strange dynamics as well. During a coffee break, Daniel pulled me aside. Something is off with her Google story, he whispered. I asked about their transition from Kubernetes to Anthos for security containerization, and she had no idea what I was talking about. Anyone who worked at Google in cybersecurity would know that inside and out. The stress was taking a physical toll. I lost 5 pounds in a week, unable to eat properly. Sleep became elusive, and when I did manage to drift off, I had anxiety dreams about data breaches and professional failure. Still, I maintained a professional demeanor at work, determined to exit with my dignity intact. On the 4th day of the transition, Harold called me into his office. Natalie needs full access credentials to the secure server room and the encryption key database, he said without preamble. I want you to provide those today. This request crossed a serious security boundary. Our protocols required multiple authorizations for such sensitive access, specifically to prevent any single person from having too much control. That would violate our security policies, I explained. Those credentials require board-level authorization and are compartmentalized for protection. Harold's face hardened. The policies have changed. I have authorization. Give Natalie what she needs to do her job. I left his office deeply troubled. Something was very wrong, and I needed to find out what before handing over the keys to our entire security infrastructure. That night, I began documenting everything. Every questionable request from Natalie, every technical error she had made, every inconsistency in her supposed Google background. The list grew alarmingly long by midnight. The next morning, I contacted a former colleague who now worked at Google, careful to frame my questions casually. I met someone who said she worked on the financial systems protection team at Google, Natalie Winters. I was hoping to connect her with some of my industry contacts. There was a pause on the line. "I have been with Google Security for 5 years, my contact replied. "There is no one by that name in any of our security divisions, and we do not have a team with exactly that name." Are you sure she did not work for a Google contractor? This confirmation of my suspicions sent a chill down my spine. I began a deeper investigation, checking LinkedIn and other professional networks. There was indeed a Natalie Winters with an impressive profile claiming Google experience, but the profile had been created only 3 months prior with connections that appeared to be mostly random professionals, with no personalized endorsements or interactions. Daniel had been conducting his own reconnaissance. I created a technical trap, he told me during a secret meeting in the parking garage. I mentioned a fictional security protocol and asked if they used a similar approach at Google. She claimed they did and went into detail about its implementation. Meanwhile, I noticed Natalie accessing servers that housed our proprietary trading algorithms far outside the scope of the security transition she claimed to be managing. The system logs showed unusual data transfers to external devices occurring late at night, well after normal business hours. Jessica discovered another disturbing connection through her marketing contacts. There are rumors that Meridian Financial is developing a trading platform suspiciously similar to our proprietary system, she informed me. And guess who consulted for them last year? A woman matching Natalie's description, though, under a different name. The pieces were falling into place, painting a disturbing picture. One evening, working late, I overheard a heated conversation between Harold and Natalie in the conference room. "We need to accelerate the timeline," Natalie insisted. "The acquisition due diligence could expose inconsistencies if we wait too long." "You promised me this would be clean and undetectable," Harold responded, his voice tense. "I cannot afford any connection to this if something goes wrong." I faced an ethical dilemma. Reporting my suspicions could be dismissed as the bitter accusations of a terminated employee, yet remaining silent could make me complicit in what appeared to be corporate espionage. After careful consideration, I submitted an anonymous report through the company compliance hotline, providing specific details about the suspicious activities I had observed without revealing my identity. 2 days later, I received a discreet email from the legal department requesting a confidential meeting. Elaine, the company general counsel, listened intently as I shared my concerns and the evidence I had gathered. "These are serious allegations," she said when I finished, "especially with the acquisition in progress. We need to handle this delicately to avoid any appearance of corporate sabotage." I spent the weekend gathering additional digital evidence. System logs showed Natalie accessing our most sensitive data repositories at odd hours. I documented patterns of external data transfers that coincided with her late-night access. Daniel provided technical analysis showing the specific files that had been copied, primarily focusing on our proprietary trading algorithms. The following week, tensions escalated. Natalie seemed to sense my investigation becoming increasingly hostile during our knowledge transfer sessions. During one particularly tense meeting, she cornered me in the conference room after others had left. "You should be careful about making accusations you cannot support," she said, her voice low and threatening. "Harold and I have already discussed your reluctance to fully cooperate with the transition. Any attempts to damage my reputation will only reflect poorly on you and could affect your severance package and future employment prospects." Her threat only confirmed my suspicions. That evening, I discovered something even more alarming while reviewing security footage as part of my documentation efforts. Natalie had brought unauthorized visitors into the secure server room after hours, bypassing normal check-in procedures. Through facial recognition software, Daniel identified one of the visitors as an engineer known to work for a foreign competitor that had been trying to enter the American financial technology market. The pieces suddenly connected to form a much larger and more dangerous picture than simple corporate espionage. With this new information, I scheduled an emergency meeting with Elaine and provided the complete evidence package. "This goes beyond corporate espionage," I explained. "I believe we may be dealing with international industrial espionage, possibly with serious regulatory and national security implications. Elaine's face grew grave as she reviewed the evidence. "I need to escalate this immediately," she said, reaching for her phone. "Do not discuss this with anyone else, including Harold or your team. Continue the transition process as normal to avoid raising suspicions while we investigate." The next 24 hours passed in agonizing slow motion as I pretended everything was normal while waiting for the company to act on my information. Little did I know that events were already in motion that would dramatically transform the situation and vindicate my suspicions in the most public and satisfying way possible. Wednesday morning began like any other during this strange transition period. I arrived early to prepare for another knowledge transfer session with Natalie, forcing myself to maintain the charade of cooperation, despite knowing what I now knew about her true intentions. At precisely 9:15 am, the atmosphere in the office suddenly shifted. The elevator doors opened to reveal 4 individuals in dark suits, their serious expressions and purposeful stride immediately commanding attention. They approached the reception desk, briefly showed credentials, and were quickly directed toward our department. Conversation throughout the open office space died as the group made their way through the floor. 2 security guards from our building joined them, along with Elaine from legal. The procession stopped directly at Natalie's workstation, where she was reviewing documentation I had provided earlier. Natalie Winters, the lead agent, asked, though it clearly was not really a question, "I am Special Agent Thomas with the FBI. We need you to come with us immediately." The color drained from Natalie's face. "There must be some mistake," she stammered, looking around frantically for Harold. "No mistake," Agent Thomas replied firmly. "Please stand up slowly and keep your hands visible." The entire office watched in stunned silence as Natalie was escorted toward the elevator. One of the agents remained behind to secure her computer and collect her personal items. Another agent headed directly toward Harold's office. Pandemonium erupted as soon as the elevator doors closed. Phones began ringing throughout the department as news spread to other floors. I sat frozen at my desk, processing the surreal scene that had just unfolded. Though I had suspected criminal activity, seeing federal agents physically remove Natalie from the building brought the severity of the situation into sharp focus. From my position, I could see into Harold's office. He appeared to be in panic mode, frantically deleting files from his computer and shredding documents. His efforts were interrupted when 2 agents entered without knocking. After a brief but intense conversation, Harold was escorted out as well, though not in handcuffs like Natalie. Within 30 minutes, I received a call from Elaine asking me to join her in the conference room. There I found not only the company legal team but also several federal agents who introduced themselves as specialists in corporate espionage and cybercrime. Miss Lawrence, Agent Thomas began. "We need your assistance understanding the security architecture of your systems and identifying potentially compromised areas. Your general counsel has informed us that you were instrumental in identifying suspicious activities." For the next 4 hours, I walked the agents through our security protocols, highlighting the specific systems Natalie had accessed and explaining the significance of the files she had targeted. The full picture that emerged was far more serious than even I had suspected. Based on our preliminary investigation, Natalie Winters, whose real name is Natalia Volkov, is part of an organized corporate espionage ring targeting financial technology companies, Agent Thomas explained. They specifically target proprietary trading algorithms and financial modeling systems with the intent to sell them to foreign competitors or use them for market manipulation. I learned that Harold had been recruited through a combination of financial incentives and blackmail. His personal finances were in disarray due to a gambling problem he had kept hidden, making him vulnerable to their approach. He had been promised a percentage of the profits from selling our proprietary systems, plus enough to cover his substantial debts. By late afternoon, Ethan called an emergency company meeting. The CEO looked visibly shaken as he addressed the assembled employees. "Today has been unprecedented in our company history," he began. "As some of you have witnessed, federal authorities intervened this morning to address a serious security breach. I want to assure everyone that we are cooperating fully with the investigation and taking all necessary steps to secure our systems and data." Ethan went on to announce that Harold had been suspended pending further investigation and that all projects under his supervision would be reviewed for potential compromise. Then, in a moment that sent a wave of vindication through me, he publicly acknowledged my role. I want to recognize Stephanie Lawrence, whose vigilance and dedication to this company led to the discovery of this threat. Despite being placed in an incredibly difficult position, she put the security of our systems and the integrity of our company first. The room erupted in applause. Colleagues who had been avoiding me for weeks now approached with apologies and congratulations. Jessica hugged me tight, whispering I knew you would prove them wrong. After the meeting, I was called to Ethan's office. He apologized profusely for not being more attentive to my concerns earlier. Harold convinced the executive team that bringing in outside expertise was necessary for the acquisition, he explained. We failed to properly vet his recommendation and we failed you. I hope you can forgive that lapse in judgment. While his apology felt sincere, the betrayal had been too profound to simply brush aside. I appreciate your candor, I replied, but I need time to process everything that has happened. Later that evening, as most employees had gone home, I worked with the federal agents to secure our systems and assess the extent of the breach. The preliminary findings were both alarming and vindicating. Natalie had indeed been systematically extracting our most valuable intellectual property, focusing particularly on our proprietary trading algorithms and client data. Around midnight, when only the security team and federal agents remained in the office, Harold attempted one final act of desperation. Having been released pending further investigation, he returned to the office and tried to access the server room, claiming he needed to retrieve personal items. When security denied him entry, he became belligerent, accusing me of fabricating evidence against him. You planted those access logs, he shouted as security escorted him to the elevator. You were always jealous of my position. This is a setup. I remained calm in the face of his accusations, which only made him appear more unhinged. The security guards and federal agents witnessed his entire meltdown, further strengthening the case against him. When the elevator doors closed on Harold's red, angry face, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Relief that the truth had finally emerged, vindication that my suspicions had been correct, but also sadness for the damage done to the company I had helped build for 8 years, and anger at the betrayal by someone who should have been a trusted colleague. Little did I know that the most satisfying chapter of this saga was yet to come, as the company would soon be forced to reckon with their treatment of the very person who had saved them from disaster. The following days unfolded in a whirlwind of activity. The FBI investigation expanded as they traced connections between Natalie Volkov, Harold Bennett, and several other individuals involved in the espionage ring. Our company found itself simultaneously managing a security crisis, an ongoing federal investigation, and the delicate process of salvaging the acquisition deal that had been jeopardized by these events. The public relations team worked overtime to craft a narrative that emphasized the company's proactive response to the threat, rather than the security vulnerabilities that had allowed it to occur in the first place. Press releases described the situation as an attempted breach that was successfully thwarted, conveniently omitting that it was nearly successful and was stopped, not by corporate security protocols, but by a manager who had been in the process of being forced out. Harold was formally terminated for gross misconduct 3 days after the arrests. His company accounts were locked, and security was instructed not to allow him on the premises under any circumstances. I later learned that the federal investigation had uncovered substantial evidence of his complicity, including offshore accounts set up to receive payments for the stolen information. While the chaos unfolded around me, I found myself in a strangely liminal position. I had been publicly praised for my role in uncovering the espionage, yet the fact remained that the company had been in the process of replacing me when it happened. No one had officially rescinded my termination, leaving me in professional limbo. 1 week after the arrests, I received a call from Patricia in Human Resources, asking me to attend a meeting with the executive team. The formal tone of the invitation gave me little indication of what to expect. I arrived at the executive conference room to find Ethan Elaine from Legal, Patricia from HR, and 2 board members waiting for me. Their expressions were carefully neutral as I took my seat. Stephanie, Ethan began, first let me reiterate our gratitude for your actions. You potentially saved this company from a catastrophic breach that could have cost us millions and destroyed our reputation in the marketplace. I nodded, waiting for the other shoe to drop. In light of recent events, we would like to discuss your position with the company moving forward, he continued. We recognize that the circumstances of your planned departure were unfortunate. Patricia slid a folder across the table. We have prepared a severance package that we believe reflects our appreciation for your 8 years of service. I opened the folder and reviewed the offer. The amount was standard for an executive at my level. With my tenure, nothing more. After everything that had happened, they were still proceeding with my termination, just with a more appreciative tone. Something shifted inside me at that moment. The fear and anxiety that had dominated my emotional landscape for weeks suddenly transformed into clarity and resolve. I closed the folder and slid it back across the table. "I appreciate the offer," I said calmly, "but I find it inadequate given the circumstances." Surprise flickered across their faces. "The fact is," I continued, "I was being terminated without cause, after identifying security vulnerabilities that Harold deliberately ignored. My replacement was a corporate spy who nearly succeeded in stealing your most valuable intellectual property. Had I simply accepted my termination and walked away, this company would likely be facing not only the loss of proprietary technology, but also potential litigation from clients whose data was compromised, regulatory penalties, and the prosecco's complete collapse of the acquisition deal." The room fell silent as my words sank in. I pressed my advantage. "Moreover, I have documented evidence of Harold's attempts to override security protocols, his deliberate exclusion of me from critical meetings, and his efforts to undermine my authority in the months leading up to these events. All of this occurred while I was attempting to strengthen our security posture in preparation for the acquisition." Elaine, the general counsel, shifted uncomfortably. As a lawyer, she recognized the implications of what I was saying, likely envisioning the wrongful termination lawsuit I could pursue. "What would you consider adequate compensation under these circumstances?" Ethan asked carefully. "3 times the standard severance amount," I replied without hesitation. "Plus extended health benefits, a positive reference letter detailing my role in uncovering this security threat, and non-disparagement agreements from all executives and board members." The board members exchanged glances. One of them leaned forward. "That seems excessive for a standard executive separation." "This is hardly standard," I countered. "And considering the alternative could involve lengthy litigation that would further complicate your acquisition and generate additional negative publicity, I believe it is quite reasonable." They asked for time to consider my proposal, but I could tell from their expressions that they recognized the strength of my position. I had become a potential liability they needed to manage carefully. 2 days later, I received a call from Elaine asking me to return for another meeting. This time, only she and Ethan were present. "We have discussed your counterproposal," Ethan said, "and while we believe our initial offer was fair, we also recognize the unique circumstances of this situation. We are prepared to offer you twice the standard severance amount." I maintained my composure despite feeling my heart rate accelerate. 3 times was my request, and given the circumstances, I believe it is justified. After another round of negotiations, they finally agreed to my terms. The relief that washed over their faces when I accepted confirmed that they knew I had held the stronger position all along. As we finalized the details, Ethan made one last attempt to salvage the situation. "We would also like to discuss the possibility of you staying with the company in an elevated position, perhaps as Chief Security Officer reporting directly to me. Your expertise is clearly valuable, and we would prefer to retain it if possible." The offer was tempting on some level. A promotion, increased salary, direct access to the CEO, the satisfaction of having Harold's former position, but something inside me resisted. "I appreciate the offer," I replied, "but I think it would be best for all parties if we made a clean break. The events of the past few weeks have made it clear to me that it is time for a new chapter." Before signing the final agreements, I had one last encounter with Harold. He had been allowed to collect his personal belongings under security supervision, and our paths crossed in the hallway as I was leaving a meeting. His face contorted with anger when he saw me. "Enjoy your victory while it lasts," he hissed. "No one likes a whistleblower. Your reputation in this industry is finished." I looked him directly in the eyes, feeling neither fear nor anger, just a calm certainty. "My reputation is built on integrity and competence, Harold, neither of which you can claim anymore. Good luck with your federal indictment." My colleagues organized a farewell gathering my last day. People from across the company stopped by to express their appreciation and regret at my departure. Jessica promised to stay in touch, and Daniel asked for my contact information for future opportunities. As I packed the last of my personal items into a box, I noticed a news alert on my phone. The FBI had expanded their investigation to 3 other financial technology companies, suggesting the espionage ring had been operating across the industry. I felt a sense of vindication knowing that my actions had potentially protected not just my company, but others as well. With my triple severance package secured, and my reputation not only intact but enhanced, I walked out of the building for the last time. The betrayal had been painful, but the outcome had ultimately worked in my favor in ways I could never have anticipated. The first few weeks after leaving FinTech Solutions were a strange mixture of emotions. Relief competed with anxiety, vindication with uncertainty. After 8 years of structured workdays and clear objectives, the sudden freedom felt both liberating and disorienting. I decided to give myself permission to decompress before making any major decisions about my next career move. The generous severance package provided financial security, allowing me the luxury of time to process everything that had happened and consider my options carefully. Long walks in the morning replaced my usual rushed commute. I rediscovered hobbies that had been neglected during years of 60-hour work weeks. Slowly, the knot of stress that had taken up permanent residence between my shoulder blades began to loosen. Former colleagues reached out regularly. Jessica and I maintained our friendship meeting for coffee every week. She kept me updated on the aftermath at the company, describing how the security team was struggling without cohesive leadership and how the acquisition had been delayed for additional due diligence. They tried to replace you with 3 consultants, she told me during one of our meetups. None of them understand the systems you built as well as you did. Ethan has mentioned regretting your departure at least a dozen times in executive meetings. Daniel contacted me about a position at his friend's startup, but I gently declined. I was not ready to jump into another corporate role where I might face similar politics and betrayals. The wound was still too fresh. During this period of reflection, I began to recognize the red flags I had initially ignored with Harold. His tendency to take credit for others, work his secrecy around certain projects, his defensive response to legitimate questions, all pointed to character issues that should have raised alarms earlier. I promised myself to trust my instincts more fully in the future. I also sought professional help to process the workplace trauma. My therapist helped me work through the feelings of betrayal and humiliation, reframing the experience as evidence of my integrity and resilience rather than a professional failure. You stood your ground in an impossible situation, she reminded me, and you were ultimately vindicated in the most public way possible. That speaks volumes about your character. 3 months after my departure, news broke that the federal investigation had expanded significantly. The ring that Natalie and Harold had been part of had targeted at least 6 other financial technology companies, successfully stealing proprietary algorithms from 2 of them. The FBI press conference specifically mentioned a vigilant security professional whose actions had helped break the case, though they did not mention me by name. As word spread through industry circles about my role in uncovering the espionage ring, job offers began to arrive. Some were from direct competitors to FinTech Solutions, likely hoping to benefit from my inside knowledge as much as my security expertise. Others were from larger financial institutions looking to strengthen their security teams in the wake of the publicized breach. I considered each offer carefully, but found myself increasingly drawn to the idea of establishing my own cybersecurity consulting practice. The experience had shown me that I had valuable expertise and instincts that could benefit companies across the industry. It would also allow me to set my own terms and avoid being caught in corporate power struggles. 6 months after leaving FinTech Solutions, I launched my own consultancy specializing in security audits and espionage prevention for financial technology companies. My unique experience made for a compelling selling point, though I was careful to honor the non-disclosure aspects of my separation agreement. My first client was a mid-sized payment processing company, whose CEO had heard about my story through industry channels. As I helped them strengthen their security protocols and train their team to recognize potential threats, I found a new sense of purpose and satisfaction. I was not just protecting systems, but empowering people to understand security as an essential aspect of their work. As my business grew, I made a point of establishing clear boundaries with clients from the beginning. I insisted on direct access to leadership, transparent communication about security concerns, and written authority to implement necessary protections without bureaucratic delays. These terms, which might have seemed demanding before my experience with Harold and Natalie, were now readily accepted by clients who recognized the value of proactive security management. I also began mentoring young women, entering the cybersecurity field, sharing not just technical knowledge, but also strategies for navigating corporate politics and standing firm in challenging situations. Document everything became my mantra, Trust your expertise, and never compromise on security fundamentals, even when pressured by management. The personal growth that emerged from the ordeal surprised me. I developed a clearer sense of my own worth and a stronger ability to advocate for myself. The fear of confrontation that had once made me hesitate to challenge Harold's early misconceptions had been replaced by a quiet confidence in my own judgment. About a year after my departure, I received an unexpected email from Ethan. The acquisition of FinTech Solutions had finally gone through, though, at a significantly lower valuation than originally projected, partly due to the security concerns raised by the espionage attempt. "I wanted to personally thank you again," he wrote. "With the benefit of hindsight, I can see how we failed to support you and how costly that mistake proved to be. The new owners have implemented many of the security protocols you had proposed before your departure. Your fingerprints remain all over the systems that continue to protect the company." His acknowledgement provided a sense of closure I had not realized I still needed. I responded graciously, but briefly wishing him well in his future endeavors. A few weeks later, news broke that Harold had pleaded guilty to federal charges of conspiracy and economic espionage. He received a 5-year prison sentence and was ordered to pay substantial restitution. Natalie Volkov and several of her associates received even longer sentences due to their central roles in the espionage ring and connections to foreign entities. As I reflect on the journey from that shocking Monday morning meeting to where I am today, I realize that what initially felt like the worst professional crisis of my career ultimately became the catalyst for my greatest growth. The betrayal that was meant to end my career instead transformed it in ways I could never have anticipated. The triple severance package provided the financial foundation for my consulting business. The public vindication established my reputation as an expert with uncompromising integrity. Even the pain of the experience served a purpose, teaching me resilience and self-advocacy that has proven invaluable in building my new venture. Have you ever experienced betrayal that ultimately led to something better? Drop a comment below and share your story. I would love to hear how you turned a difficult situation into an opportunity for growth. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life experiences about navigating workplace challenges and coming out stronger on the other side. And if you know someone who is facing betrayal or underappreciation at work, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing we are not alone in these struggles is the first step toward finding our own path to vindication. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your greatest setbacks often precede your most significant opportunities.